Good to see you didn't get lost in the Cathol Rift. I wasn't sure whether you'd make it back or not. With the builders long gone or imprisoned, you'd think the galaxy would be a safer place. But the truth is that there's always another ancient terror just waiting around the corner. Only some of them never went away. The story I have to share today is about the Killiks, a species of mostly intelligent insectoids. But, Spacer, you ask, what's so bad about a bug? Well, for starters, anyone who's asking that question has never come face to face with a collocoid. For seconds, Killiks aren't your average bug. They were alive long before the galaxy ever dreamt of a republic, and they're still alive today, unchanged, unrelenting, and occasionally dangerously aggressive.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
Something most folks don't know about the Killiks is that, while they're all one species, that doesn't really mean what most expect it to. You see, while all Killiks are Killiks, they don't all look alike. Killiks live in large colonies called a nest, and every member of the nest has the same general characteristics. When it comes to other nests, though, their members are very different. Depending on the nest's environment, Killiks can vary physically, some being larger or smaller, or having different forms and shapes. Despite this genetic diversity, they still have enough in common to be classified as one species, however. The most notable common trait is that they're insects, usually bipedal, with 4 arms protruding out of their torsos, each of which ends in a 3-toed claw. They also have some frightening mandibles sticking out of their lower jaws with multifaceted eyes. Their skin color comes in multiple shades from brown to scarlet, but most of their body is covered in a durable, chitinous exoskeleton that shines with a subtle greenish hue. And when I say durable, I mean it. Killik exoskeletons have been found in nearly pristine condition despite being thousands of years old. Their chitinous armor contains several spiracles, which are essentially an opening to allow air to flow in, and this allows them to breathe. Like I said, they all vary in size. Some are as small as 7.5 centimeters. Most are roughly human-sized, but there are stories about Killiks as tall as 50 meters. Personally, I try not to think about that. Now, if you know anything about bee society, this next part won't sound so bad. Most Killiks are female, just like with bees, and their female workers get stuff done. They only keep a few males around for breeding purposes, only intentionally birthing more when they decide to form a new nest and expand. Then, these fresh males get sent out to repopulate the new nest. Any given Killik can lay up to 1,000 eggs in a month. Those eggs hatch into baby Killik larvae, and these larvae grow into battle-ready nymphs within a year of hatching. By their second year, they're fully grown and ready to make Killik babies of their own. If you do the maths, the numbers are terrifying on how fast these nests can grow. A single Killik female and male could lead to over 1 million Killiks within 2 years, then over 1 billion in 4. Also, like bees, they built their ancient hives around a queen, though these days it's said they've modernized and have abandoned that behavior. Killiks have many ways of communicating. They all speak a common language, simply known as Killik, but aside from it, they also communicate using electromagnetic transmissions, long-distance telepathy, and pheromones. The latter especially is what makes a nest a nest. All Killiks together create a pheromonal aura of constant shared telepathy, which basically means they're one giant hive mind. Because of this hive-minded collective identity, Killiks don't have individual identities like you or me. They only see themselves as a part of the hive, and because they have no individual value, they don't hesitate to sacrifice one or thousands of their own for the nest's good. For example, if one of them is injured, they don't bother treating them, or if their nest is running low on food, they'll send scores of them out to die to save the rest of them. To them, it's nothing. To people like us, it's very uncomfortable behavior, which is why other sentient species generally don't get along with them. You know when I mentioned lack of food? This is generally a problem for them. They'll build a city and stay there, creating art like mosaics that record history. But when the area they're living in runs dry of resources, they pack up their hive and walk out across the plains in search of a new, abundant area to settle down in. Do you remember what I said about Killik pheromones? What I didn't mention before is that they don't only have an effect on Killiks. Any non-Killiks that are exposed to these pheromones undergo a series of changes. That brings us to the topic of joiners. And if you ever meet one, you'll understand what I mean when I say they're creepy as all Sith. Joiners are what people call non-Killiks who have assimilated into the hive and become one of the bug people, which is why they're also called bug sluts. Their eyes have turned black from the Killik hormones, and they speak as one of the hive, using we and other such language. It's not just for show either. The pheromones they're exposed to restructure their brains in such a way that they too can receive telepathic communication. They're not just acting, they're literally part of the hive mind. Joiners are very useful because they help the hive expand. Visitors become joiners, who then help the hive with tasks the Killiks can't complete themselves, or with diplomacy. That said, they're not very big on diplomacy. Quite the opposite, in fact. To the Killiks, war isn't frightening. It's part of the galaxy's cycle of change, and as such, they embrace it with as industrious a nature as they do anything else. When the Killiks go to war, they unite all the different nests into one mean killing machine. Since every nest is specialized at something different, they can put the different pieces together and with their hive mind, create a truly terrifying army of billions that aren't afraid to die for their nest. So imagine one nest does the heavy hitting, while another does aerial support or non-combat support. Their cooperation is terrifyingly efficient, which is why they survive for tens of thousands of years, practically unchanged. No one really knows how old the Killiks are, but most agree they're ancient. Older than the Republic, old enough to remember us humans as we evolved, while other ancient civilizations ruled the galaxy with technology lost to time. What we do know, however, is that they were native to Alderaan. Yes, right here in the core. Back then, though, it wasn't called Alderaan. The Killiks remember it as Ouroboros. Because they were so good at building, the beings known only as the Celestials took advantage of them and used them as laborers on different worlds and grand projects. There's even a Killik legend that they had a hand in the construction of the Corellian system, though I struggle to believe that's true. Eventually, the Killiks left Ouroboros en masse. One story goes that they depleted their homeworld's resources, then tried expanding to other planets, trying to take them over, which pissed off the Celestials, who banished them to the unknown regions. Little was left of the Killiks in civilized space, but their empty nests, which humans discovered when they finally made their way around the core worlds. But the Killiks weren't really gone. Some nests had been hibernating for millennia, emerging every few hundred years to wreak havoc and then return to sleep. During a distant war between the Republic and the true Sith, they sprung up and tried to reclaim their homeworld, which had blossomed in their absence. Their presence wasn't great for the locals, but it was fantastic for the powers that were, who all tried to study their hive mind and chemical signals in an effort to reproduce them and somehow manage to control humans. No one's sure if they succeeded, but I sincerely hope they did not. In the meantime, the Killiks that migrated to the unknown regions are still there, living on a smattering of worlds like Yogoi. They've kept up their habits of expanding to new worlds, but they've been careful not to be too aggressive about it, which is just as good. The Shiss have decided they're not a big enough threat to warrant a whole new war, so the two are mostly in balance, though rumors say they used to hire the Killiks to do construction work for them. It's hard to say if they're true, but I hope they are, and that the Shiss keep the bugs busy, lest they decide to return to the core and wage war on their former neighbors. But maybe that's enough about the Killiks for the day. It's a good thing most of them are out in the unknown regions, And if you think you're safe just because they're so far away, however, I've got one hell of a story for you, all the way back in the heart of the Republic. Meet me in the cantina in Coruscant Spaceport, and maybe I'll give you a few fair reasons to fear the deep core too. Thanks very much.